Hi, welcome to the Improved Garage YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be doing something that is pretty scary. I'm going to be doing an A service on this 2020 Mercedes-Benz SLC300. Now, the reason I say it's scary is because a lot of people think that you can't work on a Mercedes, that it needs to be done by a dealer, that it's some mythological creature that requires special tools and special training, but truly, it doesn't. This is my fifth Mercedes that we've owned, and I've done my maintenance on all of my Mercedes up until this point. I've done transmission services, I've done A services, I've done B services, and I'm going to walk through doing the A service on this car. This is a 2020, it's a lease, it's exactly a year old today, and it's due for its A service, which happens once every year or 10,000 miles, whichever happens first. So, some of the materials that I have to do that, I have the carbon filter, which goes internally. That is the HVAC filter. I have the underhood air filter. I have the oil filter. I have 7 quarts of Liquimoly 5W40, which is the Leach Off High Tech. And that is, this is an OE spec oil that meets Mercedes-Benz requirements. It's approved by them. You can, of course, buy genuine Mercedes-Benz oil if you want to. I have a Mercedes-Benz OEM crush washer for their oil drain plug, and I have the actual Mercedes oil drain plug. Now you're supposed to replace the drain plug and the crush washer when you do an oil change on a Mercedes because these are stretch. So when you tighten them down, they do stretch and they're not supposed to be reused. Um, Most of the time when I do my oil changes on my Mercedes, I don't even have to take these out, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. So what does an A service entail? So Mercedes-Benz get an A service every year. Well, I'm sorry, they get an A service every 1 year or 10,000 miles, and then they get a B service on the opposite year. So they go A service, B service, A service, B service, and then there are supplemental services at certain points, like a 50,000 mile, there's additional things to do. So this car is due for an A service, which is kind of the standard oil change service. So I have here the Mercedes-Benz maintenance booklet, which comes with the SLC. I printed out a copy of it so I can get it dirty and not have to worry about it. There is a copy that comes in the car in the owner's manual package. And we're going to walk through all of the different things that you need to check and do and all of this. So many people will say things like, well, why don't you just take it to the dealership? It's not worth your time. It's not this, it's not that. I make good money at my job, and I could definitely pay somebody to do this. Um, the truth is that I honestly like working on the cars. And as good as my dealership is to deal with, the amount of time required for me to drop this off and get the loaner and then pick up the loaner or pick up my car when it's done and all of that stuff is probably longer than it takes me to actually do this service. It's just not that big of a deal. So the first thing that we have is check illumination of the instrument cluster and interior lighting for correct function. So we can see that our instrument cluster is lit up. We can see our interior lighting on the doors, up high, the map lights are working, everybody's functional, our dome light is on. So all of our interior lights are properly functioning. Number 2, check the horn for correct function. Probably needs to be on. Okay, horn works. Check and correct headlamp setting. Okay, we have our headlamps on. We have our high beams on. So we have function on both sides. Check trunk cargo compartment lighting for correct function. So let's open up the trunk. Okay, so my interior light is working. That is my escape hatch. That blinks. This light is working properly. There are no other lights. Okay. Check and correct windshield washer system fluid. Washer fluid to be invoiced separately. Need to make sure that I invoice separately for it. So let me shut off the car. And I honestly don't know why they don't break it down by location. Like do all these things that are inside the car, do all these things that are under the hood. Instead, they kind of have you go all over the place. So we will open the hood. Okay. So our windshield washer fluid reservoir is here. I'm going to get some fluid. Be right back. Okay, so I have my windshield washer fluid. Okay. Windshield washer fluid is full. I don't know how she doesn't use more windshield washer fluid. Okay. Check condition of vehicle exterior. Let's walk around and check. Well, it's a little dirty. It probably needs a wash. But there's nothing falling off of it. Nothing broken, busted, damaged. Everything looks good. Okay. Check condition of the windshield. So the windshield looks good. I don't see any cracks or breaks. There's a little rock chip there. Nothing to be too worried about. Okay. Next. Check condition of wiper blades. Okay. Now I recently changed the wiper blades on this. Let's take a look. All right, so they look good. They're not beat up. They're not dry rotted. I'll order a set for them anyway and just replace them. I usually get those from Amazon. They're relatively inexpensive. But everything looks good. Engine oil and filter change. Okay, that's next. So this car takes 7 quarts of 5W40. There's an oil fill here. There is a dipstick in the back. Check your oil level. And my oil level, just to be clear, looks good before doing the project. And there's, of course, a pan under a splash cover with a drain plug on the bottom of the vehicle. Now, what I always do with the Mercedes when I'm doing the oil changes is I have a vacuum pump, which is this guy. And this vacuum pump has the ability to extract oil through the dipstick and suck it out of the car. It's a pretty cool process, and it takes, I will say it takes a little bit of additional time, but it's kind of one of those things where you just plug it in and walk away from it, and then you come back in a while and there's no more oil in the car. So it's not something that is time consuming, and you can often work on other things while it's doing its thing. Okay, so let me show you the oil extractor. So this is a tank. It holds, I believe, 2 gallons of oil or 10 quarts of oil. It's somewhere around that capacity. I originally purchased this. It's technically a transmission fluid transfer tank. I originally purchased it for doing a transmission fluid change on my GLK. With the Mercedes, you have to pump the fluid in through the bottom of the transmission through the drain plug. So what's cool though is it comes with all of these different tubes and attachments to work with kind of anything. So what we do here is we take this narrow tube, pull the dipstick, take this tube, put it in here, and we can push it all the way down till we feel it hit the bottom of the pan, which is right there. Pull it up just a little bit, and then this guy connects there. That needs to be squeezed to allow oil to flow. Now, on this, we connect it to an air line, and we allow it to pump oil out of the car using compressed air. When we're dispensing oil out of it, the maximum air pressure that we can use is like 40 psi. If we're sucking oil into it, then we can go higher than that, all the way up to 170. So I've got my compressor set at 100. We'll connect this, and what we will see is that oil starts flowing out of the car. It is a little noisy, but it's not terrible. So we'll let this run in the background, and while that's running, I'll work on a couple other things here. Yeah. I'm hoping that hiss isn't too loud in my video, but I'm going to start working on a couple other things while this is going, and we'll just kind of continue through this line. So the next thing that we have is brake system, check fluid level. So our brake reservoir is up here, and there is a max line here, and I'm about a 1/4 inch below the max line. So all we're doing is checking the level on the brake fluid. We see the fluid moving, and that's the max line right there. At 20,000 miles, we'll actually replace the brake fluid. Check coolant level in coolant expansion tank. So this here is our coolant expansion tank. There is a measurement on the side of it. We can also pull the cap and check our level is good. So we can see our coolant level, and we can also see it on the side. Visually check condition and tread depth of tires. This car has less than 10,000, well, yeah, less than 10,000 miles on it. So there's a ton of tread left in the tires. I'm on the wear bar. They're wearing very evenly. It's good. The tires are freaking expensive. So these are good. They probably have about another 10,000 miles of life. And you can see how much oil we've already pulled out of the car. Okay. So our tire wear is good. Visually check condition of brake pads and lining. Check condition of brake discs. So we can see the side of the pads right there. There's a ton of life left on them. We can see the brake discs are not scored. There's not a lip on them. Everything looks really good. This car has wear sensors for the brake pads. So it'll actually report, the brakes look like brand new. It'll report when the brakes get low. And that side is wearing evenly to match the others. Okay. Correct tire inflation pressure. And it's part of TPMS, so I'll check that at the very end. There's a reading inside the car that tells me. We do not have tire fit sealant expiration. We don't have tire fit sealant. We have a spare tire. We have to look at the tire pressure monitoring system, which I just said we'll do at the end. Check first aid kit expiration date. If I remember right, there is my spare tire. Here is my first aid kit. First aid kit. I do not see a date on anything, but nothing has ever been used. This has never been opened. So we're going to put that back. See how we're doing with oil. Done very well. Great. Like I said, this car holds 7 quarts. And back off the pressure just a touch. Okay. Vehicles with keyless go, replace key batteries. Okay. Diesel, fill up DEF fluid. Additional service and maintenance work for your vehicle can be found on the following pages. So this is not a diesel, I don't have to do DEF. The keys we do when they go dead. The car notifies us that it's dead and we replace it. So then additional, there's nothing in the SLC column on this page, which is great. Let's check out the SLC column on this. Check parking brake function. We're going to wait for our oil to finish coming out of the car, and then we'll looks like we're almost done. So then what we have left after the oil change, we have to check the parking brake function. We have to check the tire pressure and the TPMS from inside the car. We're not doing a service B, so I don't have to worry about any of these. And under additional maintenance work, we have to check the power steering fluid level. And that is it. Now, one thing that I am going to do during this service, which I'm not required to do, but I like to do it on every service, I'm going to change the engine air filter. The recommendation from Mercedes is that you change that every 20,000 miles. I think 20,000 is a little too long, so I tend to overdo it a little bit and do them every time I do a service, whether it's an A service or a B service. So I'm going to change the engine air filter as well as the cabin air filter. So loosen this lid up here. This is where the for the engine air filter, you remove those two screws or just loosen them up. And then this lifts and comes forward like that. So I don't need much. I just need to be able to sneak this air filter out here. So as we can see, quite a bit in here. This is why I like to change them more often than what they tell you to. Something I want to touch on is the OEM Mercedes filter. So Mercedes wants you to buy OEM parts, but they purchase parts from different manufacturers. So this car from the OEM has a filter produced by MAN Filter, made in Germany. It's got a Mercedes-Benz logo on it. If you buy the Mercedes-Benz filter, it is more expensive than buying the filter directly from MAN. It is the same exact part. There it is. It's got the same C28004 part number. This one has the Mercedes logo. This one does not. They're the same exact filter, make and model. So one thing that I will do, there's quite a bit of crap in the bottom of this, the leaves. I'm going to grab my shop vac and just suck that out of there. Okay, and we can see what's happening over here. My my oil bucket has removed all of the oil from the system. At this point, I just like to kind of move this up and down a little bit, just make sure that I didn't like get a valley or curl the end of it up or something like that. But you see, I'm no longer removing oil. You can take that out. I can remove my line from here. And normally what I'll do is I will just hold this up and allow it to suck a little bit out. This is a one-way valve. It doesn't allow stuff to flow as long as this isn't depressed. So really all I care about is this line and making sure that that doesn't leak inside my bucket. But at this point, I'm done with that. And what we can see is I pulled 6 quarts out of there, which is what we'd expect. Well, the measurement on the side is in liters. Just wanted to make that clear. It says 5,500, that's milliliters. That's the line that I'm at. So you can do the conversion from liters to quarts. 1 liter is 1.06 quarts. So if I did 5.5 liters, done about 6 quarts of oil. So I'm going to put my air filter back in really quick while I have this already taken apart here. Just sneak that in there. Sits in the same factory. There's like a crevice all the way around. Make sure it's nice and snug. And then this air box cover snaps into place, pushes back and then down. And you just want to make sure that there's no gap at any point, and that you actually, there's like a kind of a fin on the back that goes into a slot. You just want to make sure that you get it in there on both sides, the top and the bottom, and that you don't have any gaps anywhere. So that's in. And most Mercedes have similar air boxes to this. They're sometimes a little bit different. Like my V6 had a longer one down this side. But it's kind of the same deal. It has a hinge on the bottom, and the top it has screws, and you loosen it up and pull the cover off. So that's that. So that guy's nice and tight. All right, so now we are ready to put oil back in the car. So I'm going to remove our cap. Grab a rag here. And people who have done oil changes before are currently thinking, what about the filter? I'll show you. So on a Mercedes, the oil filter is on the top of the engine. In this, it's a little buried, it's down there, but that's the oil filter cover right there. So we remove that, and then our oil filter is accessible from above. Okay, so this cap is a 24mm socket. We loosen it up. Just be careful. Sometimes these caps are plastic. This one is actually plastic, and you just don't want to ruin it. When you loosen up the cap, there will be a little bit of oil that comes out. So the best way to get at that is going to be to remove this air tube right here. So these just kind of unsnap like that. And then there's a joint right here that we can release. So like I mentioned earlier, these cars are actually really nice to work on. You know, Mercedes-Benz is smart. They build good, reliable vehicles that work very well. They might have strict maintenance schedules, but they also have really good performance. And in order to maintain that level of performance, you know, they have maintenance requirements. But they don't want their technicians to be unable to work on the vehicles. Like they have to be able to function. They have to be able to put them together. So these are built really, really well. And they're very nice to work on. So here's our factory oil filter. It's a little bit different than the normal metal screw-on oil filter you might be used to from, you know, working on a Honda. They include O-rings in here. So there are O-rings here that need to be replaced. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this filter. The entire assembly comes up like that. We're going to replace it with a new filter, which is going to go on just like that, and it snaps into place. So now we've got our new filter attached. Now we'll see there's two O-rings here, there's two O-rings here, and the small ones, and then there's a third O-ring on the back here. That's the large one. So we'll grab our pick. It's where this hook pick kind of comes in handy. We'll just pop this O-ring off. We'll pop this O-ring off. And then we'll open up this bag. Sorry, I got a phone call. So take this. We're going to apply our large O-ring. And then goes there like that. And then our small O-ring goes over the top like that. So now I've replaced both of those O-rings. We're going to replace the large one in the back. Same deal. Take that off. Put this on. If you do use your pick to put this on, just be very careful not to nick it. Now, my O-rings are applied and replaced. I want to make sure that my cap is nice and clean. And what I'm going to do is just stick this back in here. We're always going to start this by hand because it is plastic. Cannot be more clear about that. It is plastic. It's made of plastic. So put this on. Okay. So we're nice and tight. So filter has been changed. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add oil to the car. Now, I have a tool for this. So German cars use the same oil fill neck type. So this is actually for a Volkswagen, but it's a Schwaben oil filler funnel. And realistically, there is no way that you could spill oil using something like that. So we're going to start off with the 5 quarts of liquimoly, the bigger one, because I would rather have extra left over in one of my smaller ones. These have a spout in them, so you just pull up on it like that. This opens up, and there is a cap right there. So we'll get that out of there. And this is going to be where our drain oil is going to go. So I want to keep this container nice. So start pouring. Now the reason I'm comfortable putting that entire bucket in is because this is a 5-liter bucket. And I know that I pulled over 5 liters of oil out with my extraction tank. And I know that my level of oil was good at the beginning. So we'll check our oil level, and I'm a little below the minimum. So what I'm thinking is that I'm going to end up adding probably 1 more quart, which makes sense because I took about 6 out. Now, I'm going to start cleaning up my mess a little bit. Let me get rid of this filter, get rid of these old O-rings, filter box, my old air filter and air filter box. All right. So we've given it a minute for the oil to settle. We're going to check the oil level one more time. If we look at the dipstick here, we'll see that I'm kind of in the middle between the min and the max. So based on that, I'm probably about a half a liter short. Now that being said, there is some oil that sits in the oil filter. There's some oil that sits in different crevices. And you know, I probably want to circulate the engine a little bit just to make sure that my reading is really, really good. So what I'm going to do now, because my oil filter is back in and nice and tight, I'm going to reconnect my air intake tube, and then I'm going to put my cap back on. I'm going to start the engine for a couple seconds, let everything cycle around, and then I'm going to check the oil and add. The reason that I'm comfortable doing that is because I am above the minimum oil line by about a half a quart now, half a liter. This is metric. So that is in. This is in. You should always be careful when you're doing this that you don't accidentally unclip one of these clips for a hose or something along those lines. So I'm going to remove this, which literally did not spill a single drop. The thing is awesome. Totally worth buying. If you have a German car, buy it. It's marketed for Volkswagen, so I know it works for Volkswagen, Audi. It fits Mercedes too. I don't know that it fits BMW. I never used it on our BMW when I had it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start the engine. I've got my dipstick back in. I've got my oil fill cap back on. I've got my air filter put back together. I've got all my stuff clipped back in. I know I'm good. And don't forget, we needed to check our power steering fluid level, which is good. So I take that back. Actually, this is my power steering fluid. And my level looks good. I'm a little below, well, 20 C. Yeah, I'm right where I want to be for my temperature. This is power steering fluid. There's actually 2 coolant reservoirs. One here, one there. Okay, so I'm going to start the car really quick. Just make sure my towel is out of the way. Okay, so we let it run for a couple seconds. Now I'm going to let the oil go back down into the pan. Car's level, left to right, front to back, maybe a half an inch front to back. So we're going to let everything settle back into the pan. We'll check the level, and then we'll add whatever we need to. While I'm waiting on that, I can snap this back in. Now, if you're looking at this from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snaps, they all push. So it's a little tight to pick up, but you're not going to break it. At least I don't think you will. I just kind of want to be firm, but reasonable. So pull our dipstick, wipe it off. Okay. So now what you see is that I'm down at the min line, which is what I expected. That's because, like I said, the oil filter holds some oil in it. There's other places where it sits. So it's expected that it's going to pump around and settle a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add about a half quart. I'm going to check it again and see where I'm at. Same oil, smaller bottle. I usually make sure that I have 7 quarts every time I do one of these. I usually use around 6. And I just put the whole bottle in, not paying attention. But I pulled 6 quarts out, so putting 6 quarts in shouldn't be a problem. I'm gonna remove this, put my cap back on. Let my oil settle down. So let's see where I'm at. Wipe that off. Put it in. Pull it out. All right, so I'm pretty much where I want to be. So I'm there's kind of dashed lines. So min, quarter, half, 3/4, max, and I'm right to the 3/4 line. So that, in my opinion, is where I want to be. I want to be in the range between the two. I don't want to be very close to the max or very close to the min, but I'd rather be closer to the max than the min. I'll give you a range for a reason. So I'll let it sit for another minute. I'll check it again. While I'm doing that, I'm going to get a rag and just kind of clean up this engine bay. I just use an old bed sheet. It's nice, and I can throw it out when I'm done if I get it too messy. A bottle of Griot's engine cleaner, which is more so designed to clean engines than plastic, but it works. All right. I think that looks a little better. At some point I'll do an engine bay cleaning on this car. So before I close the hood, I just want to one last time check my oil, make sure it looks good, and I'm right where I was the last time I checked. So I'm right at the 3/4 line, um, in between the min and the max. So at this point, I can close my hood. Everything is back, all my covers. I picked up all my tools. Should be good to go. Now that I'm done with that, I have 2 more things to check in my book. I have the TPMS and the parking brake. Make sure the parking brake works, which is enabled every single time. The car has an electronic parking brake, so it's always enabled every time you put it in park, which makes it not easy to check. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put the car in the on position, 1, 2, and that's going to put my car in park. Going to put my foot on the brake, put it in neutral. The car is going to yell at me. My parking brake is currently disabled, so I can roll my car back and forth, and then I'm going to enable my parking brake, and it no longer moves. So we have tested that our parking brake works fine. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to test the tire pressure monitoring system. So let's start the car. Pull it out. Okay. So if we look at our dash, we go back to service, tire pressure. Tire pressure will be displayed after driving a few minutes. So let's take it for a drive. It's really not a few minutes, it's usually like 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, 29, 30, 32, 32. So we've got 29 and 30 in the fronts, 32 in the backs. The best things about a Mercedes. You can leave a road and come back the way it came. All of the Mercedes we've had have had really, really tight turning circles. So we've been able to, I could do a U-turn in places where I shouldn't be able to, which is really nice for certain traffic situations. Okay, so we are back. Now, the very last thing that we want to do is we want to reset the service monitor. So we go to Assist Plus, we can see that the service A is due. It's been a year, it's due today. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reset the service light, which is the thing that tells you need service when you get in the car. So what you do, foot off the brake, press this button once to go to accessory. you need to make sure that the trip meter is on your dash. Press and hold answer call, and then press OK. And this menu is going to come up. Vehicle data, data mom test, pad replacement, Assist Plus. We're going to go to Assist Plus, and we're going to reset the service data. So we did full service, service 1, confirm full service, oil grade service carried out, yes, cannot be undone, confirm. Full service carried out. Now that has reset our service minder for the car. So if we back out of here and we go over to our service menu, service, Assist Plus, service B1 is due in 365 days. Now, B service is a brake service, or it's an oil change. It's an A service plus brakes, basically. And you're also supposed to do the air filters and stuff at that time, which I just did them now. So I will do them again at that time. So that's pretty much it. So I'm just going to back it into my garage. And park the car out. Okay, so my service A has been completed. Now the one last thing that I'm going to do, which I'm not required to do until 20,000 miles, but I'm going to do it anyway, is replace my cabin air filter. So let's see if we can see here. So in order to replace my cabin air filter, I need to remove this cover. Okay, sorry, my phone was going dead, so I needed to go and put a couple minutes of battery into it. So I'm underneath the passenger side compartment. The air filter goes in here. So at least I think it does. There are literally no videos online, and I've never done it, so we'll find out. So it's T20. There looks to be 3 screws, and this is where the air filter is in all of the other Mercedes I've ever done. So I'm assuming this is where it is in this car. So this is gonna come out. So we've got a plug for a light here. Pull that out. There's a little retainer clip here. Just show that. So there's a light with a plug. I'm just going to unplug that and then take this clip off of here. So that means that this guy should be able to come out. Okay, and then there's a light here as well. So we'll squeeze this in both sides, and that comes out. Okay, so you're looking at the bottom here. Um, so this is the air box here. You can see the blower motor. So the filter should be here. So I see these white clips. Seem to release pretty easy. Let's try that. And is this? That's actually pretty cool. So this comes down. Is there a clip on the back? No. This comes down and it's forward. So pull this hose off, pull this down. That's it. So there is our air filter. It's like a V. This is actually pretty clean. So we'll open up our new one. And this is like this. So we just want to, there's like a tab in the back that you just want to tuck in there. And then once you have that in there, there we go. That slides in, this goes up, and then this locks into place. This locks into place. And we put our air hose back on here. And that's that. So next we just want to put everything back together. So we'll grab our plastic piece here. We'll clip our lights back in. 1 and 2. And we'll put this up into place where it belongs. And then clip in our wire hanger here. Put this back. Okay, so there we are. Cabin air filter has been replaced. Here's the unit that came out of the car. What it looks like. Honestly, it's not incredibly dirty, but these activated parts and filters, I like to replace them once a year just to make sure they smell good in your car. And anyway, you might hear the compressor. That's because I'm draining the tank here. I just I'm running it in the opposite direction at 20 psi and keep pumping the oil out and into my drain bucket. It'll take a little while, but I don't care. I don't have to babysit it. So that's it. All done. Full A service complete. Um, so that's it. I'm gonna take a second and just talk about the couple tools that I used to do this. So I needed a T20 and T25 Torx in order to take apart the two air filter containers. We used 6 quarts of 540 liquid moly. I'd recommend buying 7 because you might need more than 6. The car calls for 7, but obviously you can't get every drop out of it. I use the oil pump. If you don't use the oil pump, then you definitely need a drain plug and a gasket. I didn't take the drain plug out, so I don't have to worry about it. The oil filter was a Mercedes OE filter. And all of the products can be purchased from FCP Euro or from ECS Tuning. I'll post some links in the description. That Schwaben oil funnel comes from ECS. I highly recommend that thing. It's awesome. It's a couple bucks, but it's really nice. And the filters were MAN filters, which are the OE for Mercedes. The oil filters, I bought a Mercedes branded, but Hengst makes the OEM oil filter for Mercedes. So oftentimes you can buy Hengst filters for cheaper than the Mercedes ones, but in this case they were the same price, so I just bought the one with the Mercedes logo on it. I used the 24 millimeter socket, and then I also I used a 1/2 inch ratchet to take that out. But other than that, I didn't really need any other tools. So